Right guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Well, today we're off to go and collect a very cheap Mercedes S-Class that I've bought. It's a W221 from late 2006. It's silver, it's got AMG style wheels, and it looks like it's in quite good condition. And the best bit's the price. Wait for this. I've paid just £1,800 for this car. For an S-Class Mercedes, it just sounds too cheap, doesn't it? When it was offered to me yesterday, I just couldn't really say no. Perhaps I should, but I couldn't. I love a cheap barge. And the S-Class Mercedes, well, as you know on this channel, I've featured them loads of times. I love a cheap S-Class. It's been described to me as having impeccable service history, but it does have a few issues. The AMG style wheels are a bit scuffed, so they need to be refurbished. There's a little bit of rust here or there, which is standard on a Mercedes from this era, and there's an ABS and traction light on, so I'm hoping it's just a sensor. And that's all I know, to be honest. I do need to keep my sensible head on. I don't end up massively overspending on this. But I'm thinking this could be a £4,500, £5,000 car. So if I can keep my spend to around £1,000, it'll owe me £2,800. There's a fair chunk of profit here. It is risky though, I'm well aware of that risk. It's a bit like playing Russian roulette, isn't it? I'm just feeling a little bit apprehensive. I just don't want to get bitten by it. I'm aware it is risky business buying an old car like this. I mean, it's now 18 years old. This is a car that started out life at nearly £70,000. The fact that I bought it for just £1,800 means that I could be buying a complete basket case, couldn't I? We shall see. Should we go and have a look? Do you ever do something and then instantly regret it? This is how I'm feeling about my 2006 S-Class you can see behind me. Let me explain why. So here's the S-Class, and first impressions are pretty good. Excuse the wind, it's very windy up here today. I've just picked it up from the car wash. It was dropped off there for me, and it does look nice and clean. The description was right about the wheels. The wheels are crying out for a refurb, but the brake discs look okay. There's a little bit of rust, which I was told about, which again isn't a big deal because you can just blow it into this sort of area here and then lose it. So that's not the end of the world. So that and the wheel refurbs, set of plates, and it's the same around this side actually. A little bit of rust here, but again, that can be painted. Wheels refurbished, bit of scabbiness there, but that can be painted as well. The discs look okay. So it all looks pretty good. So when I pulled up at the car wash, I was quite pleased. I thought that for £1,800 is a right result. But, and it's a big but this, I mean, inside's quite clean as well. And it's quite a good spec. So we've got things like a reverse camera, for example. Let me fire it up for you. Power this on. We've got a reverse camera. We've got heated seats. So it isn't a complete base spec, but it's done 127,000 miles, so it's not that high, but my engine light's on. It doesn't have, well, it doesn't have the power it should. It's as if the turbo isn't engaging. And when you put your foot down, I get my little glow plug light on, which could be, well, it could be anything. It isn't glow plug related, I don't think. I think it could be EGR, turbo, who knows. I think it's worth saving though, because I mean it drives well apart from the lack of power. It does drive all right, like it's solid over the bumps, it doesn't feel loose or vague, it doesn't knock when you go over bumps, it's all quite good. My steering wheel buttons here aren't all sticky, and everything works. Well, I say everything works. My passenger window doesn't work, and my driver's one has got a bit of a mind of its own. I put it up before, there you go, I put it up before and it just, there we go. Sort of lowered again automatically. Anyway, minor issues. I think that's possibly a software update. Had that before with an S-Class. Worryingly, I mean, we've got loads of paperwork down here, which is fine, but then on the passenger seat, we've got this. I'm praying that's off the previous owner's tumble dryer, but I think it's off. I think it's off this S-Class. So yeah, God knows what's going on there, to be honest. I'm slightly concerned, I must admit. On the face of it, it seems like a bargain, but got a little keypad there. Yeah, on the face of it, it seems like a bargain, but I just know it possibly isn't. Now, when I did a car vertical check on this before, it did all check out okay, and here's what I found. By the way, before you hand over any cash for a used car or motorbike, it's really important that you do a vehicle history check. Now, I always use a company called Car Vertical. They're not expensive and they're really thorough. They're cheaper still if you use my promo code. So if you use my promo code HIGHPEAK, that's HIGHPEAK all one word, HIGHPEAK, you'll save yourself 20% off each and every check that you do. or alternatively, click the link below in the video description. Let me show you the report then on this S-Class. So it's never been clocked, there's no outstanding finance, and there's no recorded accident damage. So that's all good. The last known mileage was 127, and the mileage is consistent every single year. So that's all good. No damage records found. Never been a natural disaster, although I feel like I have with this. Mercedes-Benz S-Class S320 diesel, 3-litre diesel V6, 7-speed automatic. Quite a reliable gearbox actually, the old 7G. So, I mean, it's only failed the odd MOT. It's been okay. It's had a private plate on it at some point. It's only had, I think, 3 owners. The last MOT was October 23. Oh, hang on a minute. No, it wasn't. It had another one in January 24, and it passed with no advisory items. So that's pretty good. So the basics are all right. I mean, the bodywork needs a little bit of attention, but no more than £300 or £400. The wheels need maybe £200 or £300 spending on them, having them powder coated at Prestige wheels. That I can live with. I'll give it a service, a gearbox service, a fresh MOT, I suppose, and a proper clean. Right now it's only had a mini valet, and it is all right. I'll fix the window. None of that concerns me. What concerns me is the lack of power. If it needs a turbo and it costs me £1,000, then my profit's out the window. Let me drive this and I'll show you exactly what I mean. It's not right, and it worries me. Right then, let me show you what I mean. Let's fire her up. My ABS and ESP light are on. See owner's manual. Terrific. And I mean, it fires straight up. That's fine. Somebody behind me just started up. But my engine light's on, which is weird. And when I rev it, it's just not quite right. We'll pop it in drive then, and we'll take it on a quick. I think we've got a sticking caliper as well. Oh, that doesn't sound good, does it? Remember that scene in the Titanic where it was making all those creaking noises just before the boat snapped in two? That's what this is doing. I mean, on the bright side, we do have a free umbrella, so it's not all bad, is it? Every cloud. That's not quite right. I've just lost those ramblers in a cloud of black smoke as well. There we go. What I think I've done here, ladies and gents, is bought myself a big fat head hatch. A big German headache. Ah boy, right. I should have really said at the start of this video, don't try this at home, shouldn't I really? Don't buy a cheap S-Class for 1,800 quid because it will end in tears. Having said that, I shouldn't be too pessimistic, should I? It could be something simple, could just be some sort of sensor. What I'm going to do then, I think, is run it to my mechanics, leave it for a full engine service and an inspection. I'll let them plug it in first and see what it needs. I really don't know. I've been here before. I've been burned. I should have learned from a mistake, shouldn't I really? And we've got a sunroof, which is good. It's nice. Works as well. And you've got to bear in mind, I suppose, this car's 18 years old. It's entitled to have a few issues, isn't it? The only trouble is, when I come to sell this car, the person buying it won't expect it to have any issues. They'll be expecting a brand new S-Class. This is what I'm up against. The wheels and the bodywork, that doesn't concern me at all. I can soon do that. But I think first, I need to get it to my mechanics. Get them to see what's wrong with it. Hopefully, like I say, this owes me £1,800 currently. The wheels are going to cost me 300, the paint's going to cost me 300, that's 6. That's 2,400 quid. If I could spend maybe £600 at my mechanics, then it would owe me 3 grand. And I think it's 4,995. It would look like an awful lot of car for 5 grand, wouldn't it? So perhaps I shouldn't be too down too soon. Might be all right. Having said that, I think I need to do a gearbox service on it as well. It's done 127. There's no evidence of a gearbox service. And it seems to be clinging onto the gears a little bit too long for my liking. I've got a feeling this might have to go to SPR, my local Mercedes specialist. But we'll see. We'll see what my regular mechanic says first. I mean, like I say, it does drive all right. It's quite solid over the bumps. It's not vague or loose. I mean, I wonder what that ABS and traction light could be. I would guess some sort of sensor. Because the brake pedal doesn't buzz when you brake. Now, usually when there's an ABS fault, it's often the ABS rings, and you get some sort of buzzing sensation under your foot on the pedal. But this doesn't do that. It seems to be okay. I mean, I think this particular 3-litre diesel V6 produces 220 horsepower, I think. So and they produce loads of torque, so they're usually very quick. And this one, that's my foot to the floor. It's like I'm in an old 3-litre diesel non-turbo. That's what it feels like. See, like now, for example, I'm climbing up quite a steep hill, my foot's to the floor, and we're just about doing the speed limit. Nowhere near as powerful as it should be. It's just like the turbo's not engaging. It could be something like a turbo actuator, or it could be the actual turbo. If it needs a new turbocharger, then we're talking at least £1,000. I know this particular engine suffers with bad oil leaks as well, because the cooler is in the V of the engine, and it can be a bit of a pain in the neck to replace. I only know these things through bad experiences, by the way. I'm not some sort of car anorak. It was a bit of a thud, wasn't it? Thought I'd been shunted. I mean, on the bright side, you'd never get any speeding tickets in this thing, would you? Oh well. Let me get this down to my mechanics, and I'll speak to you in a couple of weeks' time. Give me 2 weeks, and hopefully I'll have spun this car around. Right then, I've got an update for you regarding my very cheap Mercedes S-Class. Here's what it needed. So after we last spoke, I took it down to my mechanics. There were various warning lights on, so I asked them to do a service and an MOT, and then they discovered it needed quite a bit doing to it. So I've got my bill here, which is quite expensive. I'll talk you through the total in a second. So it had an oil filter, oil, rear brake discs, rear brake pads, a fitting kit for the shoes, a new battery. Oh, that's expensive, £141.78 for a new battery. A near side rear ABS sensor. That was one of the faults, it was coming up with an ABS fault. 2 rear brake back plates, they'd rusted. Some rear brake shoes, £54, and some labour. So my total there, ready for this, was £1,016.46. When I came to collect the car, I did about 100 yards in it, and it felt very sluggish. I knew something just wasn't right. So I spun the car back round and dropped it back with my mechanic and just explained that it was just lacking power. Then what happened was, well, about 3 seasons really. And here we are some 8 or 9 months later, and I finally got an update for you. Shall I come and show you the S-Class? Follow me. You might be wondering why we're walking to the car rather than me bringing the car to you, and there's a very simple explanation. It doesn't run. So when my mechanic checked it out, it was coming up with a steering angle sensor and another ABS fault. Every time they plugged it in and scanned it, it was coming up with different codes, which just seemed really weird. So then they thought, rather than it be a fault with every single sensor every single time, which wouldn't really make sense, they thought perhaps there's a fault with the wiring loom. So they dug the wiring loom out of around the engine bay somewhere, and it was full of oil. So the engine's leaking oil out of some sensor and forcing its way into the wiring loom, and it's just causing havoc, basically. So I haven't done anything with it. My bill there of £1,016, my mechanic hasn't made me pay out of pity, I think, really, or sympathy or something. So I've got one very sad looking S-Class. Would you like to see it? Come on then. Here it is. Look at the state of that. Because it's been sitting for some time now, the air suspension's dropped, so it looks like a lowrider. It's full of leaves and dirt, and it just looks very sorry for itself, doesn't it? I hate leaving cars to rot like this, but I really don't know what to do with it. It's going to take an awful lot of time and money. It's like that Carly Simon song, isn't it? It's going to take an awful lot of time and a whole lot of money to get this back on the road. What would you do? I mean, it could be worse. At least it doesn't have a Leeds United sticker in the back window, I suppose. This isn't a great image, is it really? Look at my nice AMG wheels. Sometimes, guys, I really don't know what day it is, do I? It's quite a sad story, this. But I suppose, hopefully it'll act as a bit of a lesson to anyone watching this. Don't buy a cheap Mercedes S-Class. Don't forget, these were cars that once cost £70,000, and the fact that you can now buy them for 1,600 quid or whatever this one cost, can't quite remember because it was a long time ago, doesn't mean you should. They're very complicated and very expensive when they go wrong, which they do frequently, especially now they're 18 years old. So that's the long and short of it, really. That's the moral of the story. Don't buy a cheap Mercedes S-Class, or 7 Series, or Audi A8, or Lexus LS. Who knew? So, not Mrs. Doubtfire then. Well, there's not much else to say, is there really? I don't know what to do with this one. I'm going to end up weighing it in, aren't I? And losing an awful lot of money. Not only have I lost money on it, my mechanic's lost £1,000 as well. So all in all, it isn't a great story, is it? Oh well, that's sometimes the motor trade. So thank you once again for watching. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done already. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and TikTok. I'll leave the links below. And yeah, cheers guys. See you next time.